Hello everyone, welcome to Monday's edition of the Chris Pritchard Cycling News Show. Now we're going to start with a story that we covered yesterday. Anyone of a nervous disposition may want to look away now, as we're going to report back on Lorenzo Gobbo getting impaled by the piece of track at the Eddy Merckx Velodrome in Ghent. Avert your eyes now if you're a little bit squeamish. Now I reported on this news story yesterday, and from what it looked like on first reporting, it looked like the splinter had kind of missed everything vital, and it looked like it had just pierced his skin and obviously gone through some soft tissue. But ultimately in the report it didn't say anything about him being in intensive care or with a punctured lung. However, reports are coming out today that that is just the case. The splinter went through his lung, came out the back, has punctured his lung, and he is in intensive care. During the scratch race that Gobbo was competing in, that as a rider came down amongst some other riders, a pedal actually dug into the wood and caused his splinter to raise up off of the surface, and then Gobbo ended up hitting it, cutting his thigh, and then ultimately getting himself impaled on it. Now this isn't the first time that this has happened. I'm sure it's happened the world over plenty of times. It's happened to me a few times, but not on this scale. Normally you get tiny little splinters that you end up picking out of your leg for a good week, but you can live with that. What you can't live with is a massive piece of wood impaling you, especially when it punctures your lung. As I said yesterday in the news story, it's happened twice that I can think of on a big scale. Firstly was the Malaysian sprinter Awang. He ended up getting a splinter through his leg. That was during a World Cup race. Yeah, again, not half as big as the one that Gobbo got in his back, but still, you wouldn't like it in your leg, would you? And the other one is Olympic champion Jason Kweli. He was racing at Meadowbank back in 95, 96. He ended up coming together with Chris Hoy and Craig McLean. They ended up having a big crash.
Chris caught me and Chris went down. I slid along the track, and within this slide along the track, I basically picked up two pieces of wood that went into my back. One was about that long, about that wide and about that thick, that went from there through there, and it was stuck in my back. I had another piece of wood that was stuck through there.
At the time we didn't have all the information, and I said it looks worse than it probably actually is. Turns out it's not, because it punctured his lung. He had a 3-hour operation to remove the splinter. He's going to make a full recovery, no doubt, but that's pretty scary for a young 17-year-old to be getting a punctured lung like that. So yeah, we just want to send our best wishes to Lorenzo. He won't watch the show. That's cool. The sentiment is there that we're sending our best wishes to him. So get well soon, Lorenzo. Stage 10 is over and done with now. Before we get into the stage, let's take a look at what the riders faced today on this stage. What? So the riders had 217.5 kilometres ahead of them. It's the 5th time this tour that a stage has been over 200 kilometres. This one probably not as daunting as the others. 4 categorised climbs, starting with a 4th cat right at the start, 22 kilometres into it. And then we've got 2 cat 3s followed by that intermediate sprint, and a 3rd cat with 53 kilometres to go. And then it's pretty much just downhill from there. A little bit of undulation, but ultimately this is a day for the sprinters. But was it a day for the sprinters? Whoa, Chris, I'm just going to stop you there. Now you're a little bit older and a little bit wiser. I mean, probably 8 hours older and a hell of a lot wiser, because the stage has just finished. Speechless, absolutely speechless. This was supposed to be a transition stage. This was supposed to be a chill out, a pre-rest to the rest day. This was everybody taking it easy, letting a break go up the road, pull it back for the sprinters, sprinters sprint, everybody's happy. What just happened? Bigger time gaps have been put in on the transition stage than they have on the mountainous stage of stage 6. So rather than me just try and go through it all, I just want to explain how we go about putting these videos together, because I want to do something a little bit different. Right, so in the morning we all have a chat, a little bit of a conference call you might call it, where we decide on what stories we're going to cover for the day. Once we've done that, I will then go to the camera, set it up, and I'll start filming those stories. So any story that you hear after what's happened on the stage is obviously pre-recorded. No brainer, right? As I'm recording that and editing that, I've got the TV up over there on the wall and I'm watching the tour, just keeping an eye on it, just trying to find out what's happening, getting a rough idea of who's in the break, how hard everybody's working, and what are going to be the stories of the day, really. If I do miss anything, however, we've got Victor up in the office who's sat there watching it, taking notes. And his notes today have been brilliant. So once the stage is finished, I'll check out his notes and he'll give me all the relevant details that I need to check up on. And then I'll go with myself and I'll just do a little bit of research and I'll check them out and make sure it's all right. And then I will portray it over to you and give you some sort of narration as to what's happened in the stage. But today we're going to go straight to that document and take it word for word, as today's Stage 10 review is brought to you in the words by Victor Lundquist, narrated by me, Chris Pritchard. Stage 10. 217.5 kilometres St. Fleur to Albi. Weak 6-man break, no real big riders. Classic transition stage. Quick average speed for an easy stage due to the tailwind and the majority of it being downhill. Maximum gap only a bit over 3 minutes. Peloton keeping them close. Jumbo-Visma doing most of the work. Tony Martin beast. Also Maxime Montfort, crazy effort. Both of them rotating all day. Johan Alfredo getting shelled after only 73 kilometres. Kind of like me yesterday, lol. Quick interlude here. Vic had a race yesterday and got shelled after 3 kilometres. Good work, Vic. He's ill with food poisoning but doesn't want to DNF the Tour de France. Will he finish? Lot of wind. Potential echelon. Bora and Ineos go hard with 63 kilometres to go. Peloton is breaking up. Alfredo randomly back in the peloton at 58 kilometres to go. Peloton going easy now up the last climb of today. Breakaway gaining time again. Breakaway has almost 2 minutes with 42 kilometres to go. Has a small potential of actually succeeding. EF Education go ham with 36 kilometres to go. Another split in the peloton. Quickstep with Alaphilippe doing big turns. Wellens is dropped in the process. Team Ineos is also pulling behind. Not a lot of people left in the peloton. They are going full gas. Thibaut Pinot is behind. FDJ pulling really hard to get back. George Bennett also in the third peloton. Richie Porte, Rigoberto Urán also gone. Groenewegen is also in the second peloton. Thibaut Pinot is pulling to get back. Richie Porte is also taking turns in the second peloton. It's literally Pinot, Porte versus Team Ineos and Bora. George Bennett is alone, 90 seconds back, and will lose big time today. Fuglsang confirmed in the Pinot group. Basically a bunch of team leaders trying to get back into the main peloton. Urán, Fuglsang, Porte, Pinot, all pulling. It's madness. Team Sunweb, epic 5-man lead out. Peter Sagan, Matthews, Ewan, Viviani in the group. Groenewegen is in the main group as well. Matthews, epic fail. Did he forget to sprint? Wout van Aert wins the stage. Close sprint finish. Main GC losses at 1 minute 40. Pinot, Porte, Urán and Fuglsang. GC losses further back, 2 minutes and 9. Landa and Ciccone. It must be really good for the GC contenders to be able to use that stage to actually gain time on their GC rivals, rather than just sitting in the bunch and running the risk of crashing by getting lazy. Everyone was full gas. Everyone, no matter whether they were in the first, second, third, out the back, wherever they were all going full gas to get to that line as quick as they could to take as much time out of the GC rivals. This stage right here, stage 10, might be the most pivotal one when it comes down to it. All right, so that takes us into the first rest day of the tour. Stage 11 is going to be on Wednesday, which takes them from Albi to Toulouse. Easy, I can pronounce them, easy. I've got them pronunciations down to a T. Albi, Toulouse. And do you know what? I'm going to throw the rule book out of the window. I have no idea what's going to happen. What should happen is all the riders should just ease themselves back into it. It should come down to a sprint. No one should have a really hard day. And a break will get a nice gap. They'll pull it back. Sprint finish. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. No one's really injured. No one's really hurt. No one's really fatigued themselves and they've all got themselves nicely back up to race speed. That's what should happen. But who knows what's going to happen after what happened today? If there's any sign of a crosswind, people are going to be smashing it. That's all I know. So my prediction is literally anybody. Now, in other Tour de France news, Alessandro De Marchi had a massive crash. I forgot to mention it yesterday. I'm surprised I mentioned anything yesterday. Forgive me for forgetting pretty much everything yesterday. And the fact that Mathieu van der Poel is actually Dutch and not Belgium. I can't apologise to my Dutch brethren enough. Although someone did make a point, he was born in Belgium, so technically I was right. Anyway, yesterday we forgot to mention the fact that Alessandro De Marchi had a massive crash, and it looked pretty serious when he was getting stretchered into the ambulance. I didn't see the crash, and I don't think the crash was caught on camera. However, we have an update from Team CCC from last night. Update, X-rays have confirmed that Alessandro De Marchi has sustained a fractured clavicle, fractured ribs, a lung contusion and multiple abrasions in his Tour de France 2019 crash. Wishing Dema a speedy recovery and a big thanks for everyone's support. Whilst in hospital as well, Alessandro De Marchi took to Twitter to let his fans know just how he was feeling. Ecco me, amacato ma sorridente. Voglio ringraziare le moltissime persone che mi hanno mostrato il loro affetto con messaggi e chiamate. Come potete vedere le mie condizioni sono buone. Or as I like to say in English, I'm bruised but smiling. I want to thank the many people who have shown me their love with messages and calls of encouragement. As you can see, my condition is good. I have some bruises, but I'll be alright. In other Tour de France news are my two favourite pieces of content from the Tour de France so far. First up, what the hell is going on here? I have absolutely no words, but that's the type of content that the Chris Pritchard Cycling News Show relies on. Amazing. And also Matthew Keenan and Robbie McEwen in the commentary box, commentating on a sprint finish. Check it out on the Tour de France Facebook page.
Sagan it is who waits patiently. It's still Lampard at the front. Mercu, Richesi, Viviani. He is in the box seats. And the boxing is happening with Peter Sagan. He has pushed Christoph out of the way. Caleb Ewan is there. Groenewegen gets behind Caleb Ewan. The sprint now opens up for Richesi. Viviani is waiting. Philipsen is wide. He's trying to come. Here goes Groenewegen. Viviani, Ewan, Caleb Ewan, Peter Sagan, it's Groenewegen! It's Groenewegen by the closest of margins. We'll wait for the photo.
Now here's a discussion for you. Is the ban on tramadol making this year's Tour de France safer than ever? According to Race Radio, Lotto, Jumbo and Want to Go Bear doctors, that's exactly the reason why this year's Tour de France is safer than last year's. This year's Tour de France has been noticeably safer than previous editions. 6 stages in and 172 riders still in the race. Lotto Doctor and Want to Go Bear Doctor tell Het Nieuwsblad that the reason is clear, the ban on the painkiller tramadol. Now let's update those stats all the way to stage 10 now. Last year in 2018, 165 riders were left in the peloton come stage 10. 2019, we still have 170. And in 2019, only 5 riders have abandoned so far. So can you put it all down to the fact that tramadol has been banned? I'm not too sure. It'd be interesting to find out. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts. Let me pass a question off to you. Do you think a ban on tramadol has increased safety within the peloton? Do you think people are taking less risk? Do you think people are more alert? Do you think people are more aware of the surroundings and more in control of their functions to be able to handle and control a bike much more efficiently? Now, I don't condone betting on this channel. However, we're seeing a lot of people putting outrageous bets on and them coming in. Another one is this guy here who put Impey to win at 300 to 1. Crazy. I'm not too sure how much money he put on it, but fair play for that bet. If anybody wants to give me any tips down in the comments below on some really wild odds that might come in, then please feel free to do that. Talking of Daryl Impey, after taking that stage victory, a story emerged that I've never heard of, but clearly some people have, that was posted on Cycling Tips back in 2014. So yesterday, Vela Roper tweeted about Daryl Impey cleared of doping. Following that link in that tweet, it takes you across to Cycling Tips and an article from back in 2014. In late June, Impey was notified by Cycling South Africa that he had returned an adverse analytical finding for the banned diuretic probenicide at an in-competition drug test at the country's National Time Trial Championships back in February. Impey has always maintained his innocence. In a hearing in Johannesburg yesterday, Impey was informed that he had been absolved of any wrongdoing after a Durban pharmacist took responsibility for contaminating empty gelatin capsules that Impey had bought. The Star newspaper in South Africa reports that Impey had visited the chemist to buy empty capsules to fill with bicarbonate of soda for use in the South African Road Race Championships. Impey was reportedly told that the pharmacist had no capsules, but later received a call saying that some capsules had been found. Impey went back to the chemist to buy the capsules that afternoon. According to the Star, the pharmacist dispensed probenicide to another customer just before serving Impey, and that his hands had contaminated Impey's capsules. At Thursday's hearing, the pharmacist produced cash register receipts showing time and purchase information to confirm the story. Of all the drugs that pharmacist could have been handling prior to Impey returning to buy his empty capsules, it happened to be a diuretic performance-enhancing drug. What are the odds? Now, I guess the rehashing of that story is to throw doubt on Impey's win in stage 9, I guess. There's no other reason to bring that up. Had he not won, that story wouldn't have resurfaced. What a horrible world cycling is. Let's take football, for instance, right? Man City win the Premier League. Liverpool win the Champions League. And don't forget the kind of rivalry you get in football, right? Man U fans hate. They bloody hate Man City fans. Everybody bloody hates Liverpool, right? But at no point, when an opposing team wins, do they take to Twitter or anywhere else and say, they're all doping, they're all full of drugs. They don't do that. They might make snide comments about their appearance or how rubbish they are at football, but they never throw the dope card at anybody. Whereas the cycling fraternity bloody love it. And these are people who are fans of the sport. And as soon as someone wins, doping. As soon as anybody has a result slightly out of the ordinary, bloody doping. If you're not motor doping, you're biologically doping. Because it's not just Impey that's had this doubt cast upon him by rehashing an old story. Thomas de Gendt also is having to deal with trolls who are claiming that he had a motor on his bike during his Stage 8 victory. So after the tweet that I mentioned yesterday about the crazy stat of Thomas de Gendt only being in the peloton for 3 seconds and spent the rest of the day in the breakaway, Trolley McTrollson, E1 Sprockler, tweeted this.
Question I have is the motor in the front or in the rear wheel? Or is he sticking with the old school crank assist?
Pablo Martin Palmero replied to that saying, do you have what it takes to tell this to Thomas de Gendt? Also, I want the evidence or I hope he takes you to trial. I'm tired of anonymous assets pointing fingers without responsibilities. Trolley McTrollface.
Thomas, you heard Pablo, he wants evidence. Why don't you give it him, winky face? Emoji.
To be fair, Thomas de Gendt got involved. Why didn't you give it him?
Slightly easier for you, no? But I can borrow you my cell phone.
I think he means lend.
If you need something to shoot a photo with, winky face, thumbs up emoji.
And Thomas de Gendt bited again. You are so sure about motor doping, so you must have evidence. Go on then.
Evidence of what? Be specific, I'll provide. We've gone through this though. You weren't interested last time, so don't pretend to be interested this time. Seeing as you're likely competing against motor dopers, it's funny that you're not interested in learning more about it.
You say I motor dope. Show me the evidence that I do.
I'll show you the evidence if you address it. Don't chicken out now, Thomas.
Right, the biggest learning from this conversation is you cannot be a troll when they're bringing you down to their level. There is nothing you can do. The only thing you can do, which I wish someone would do, is find out who this person is. Literally go and get Thomas de Gendt to go and knock on his door and take his bike round to his house and say, right, it's there. Do whatever you want with it. Do it. I'm a big fan. I love you. Can I have your autograph, please? I don't want to touch you, but I don't believe it, really. I've got to go now. My mummy needs me. There's more to this. Let's carry on this conversation. An argument is not evidence. What you think or believe is not evidence. Finding an actual motor in my frame is evidence. Having a positive result in a doping test is evidence.
I didn't say it was, Thomas. Stop making stuff up and start addressing the issue at hand. Rampant motor doping by yourself and some of your colleagues.
Does this happen in other sports? I highly doubt it. I've not seen it happen in other sports to the degree that it happens in cycling. Now, if these people, because I presume they must have an interest in cycling, they're either trolls who have absolutely no interest in cycling and they're just trying to wreck cycling for everybody else, or they are genuine cycling fans and they want the sport to be cleaner and more transparent and better for the public to watch. And if that's the case, why be anonymous? And why not take steps to actually do something about it? Instead of just trolling it all on Twitter, actually go out there and do something about it. You're no better than the madman in the street just shouting random quotes from the Bible in the hope that somebody is going to go, oh, I'm enlightened, I'm coming to you, mate. And here's the other thing, right? Cycling is one of the, if not the, most accessible sports in the world. Where else in the world can you walk up to somebody's bike, Thomas de Gendt bike, and walk up to it and probably physically touch it? I mean, you might not supposed to be doing that, but you could do that. Fans can physically walk up to the bus and touch the bus. They can touch the riders as they walk past and go and sign on. Riders park their bikes up outside a sign on. You could potentially go and pick one up. It gets no more accessible than that. You can't walk into a locker room at a football, American football, baseball, basketball. You can't walk in there and check out their kit, see what shoes they're using. Has he got extra padding in those shoes to make him bounce higher? If these people are so against motor doping, design something that finds these motors out. Go on, do it. Right, go and find them and then go to the races and inspect the bike. Become a UCI commissaire. Infiltrate the system and call everybody out. Do it. Be brilliant. Do that. Instead of just wasting your time, sat with your hand down your pants, typing away on computer. I'll wreck somebody's life. I know I can wreck somebody's life. You're motor doping. Hey you, what drugs are you taking? Do something positive with it, please. Now don't get me wrong, right? I know this type of stuff happens. It happens in sport. People dope. People use motors. Check this story out. We mentioned it briefly yesterday, but Cycling Weekly reported on it again today. 2 riders flee amateur race after refusing to let their bikes get checked for motors. But I honestly can't believe that they would allow it to happen in the world's biggest stage race. Now, all that being said, on Thomas de Gendt, the boys in the office again have put together a sweet power overlay on the Eurosport footage. So, link in the description. Go and check out the Eurosport Facebook page and check out the Thomas de Gendt power analysation over on their page.
And has this man got what it takes to stay in the lead at the top? 18 seconds right now, he's still not quite there.
But you know what? After all is said and done, my favourite part of the Tour de France so far is the fact that Richie Porte has made it past stage 9. He is in uncharted territory. Who knows what's going to happen now to the Tour de France? Maybe this is the moment he's been waiting for, to get past stage 9, to explode the Tour. Please, please, at least let's make it to Paris, Richie Porte. And he tweeted this out last night. Stage 9 done. Hashtag Tour de France 2019. Jack Black saluting during the School of Rock film GIF. Now, there's still loads of stories that I've not covered today, and eventually we'll get round to covering them. But one story I want to pick up on after this comment from Trevor. Nothing on the Giro Rosa. Biggest stage race on the women's calendar and no mention. Disappointed. Trevor, I appreciate the comment. Now, the Giro Rosa has been covered in the last 3, I think, Chris Pritchard Cycling News shows. I did miss the finish, I will admit to that. I apologise, but like I said in yesterday's video, I'm ill. So forgive me for that. Also, it's Sunday. I just forgot. All right, so today we're going to cover the Giro Rosa. The final stage, stage 10, was into Udine and it finished up a short little drag. Kristin Wild just decided to get to the front of the peloton and just bloody send it, but she just bloody sent it a little bit too much. She overcooked the turn and screwed it up for pretty much everybody, but that gave Marianne Vos the perfect opportunity to just smash it to the top of the climb and win the stage. No one was going to catch her after that. Everyone went in too hot. They followed Wild in there, and Marianne Vos realised that, put the hammer down and ended up taking the stage victory. But ultimately, it was to no avail for the overall GC, as Annemiek van Vleuten won by a long stretch.
Victory in this year's race for Marianne Vos. Sat up, took the applause. Brand came across the line in second, just ahead of Kopecky.
Annemiek's overall time was 3 minutes ahead of the second place rider, Anna van der Breggen, and that time was all won on that stage 5 climb, where she attacked hard up that final 10k stretch, as well as dominating in that time trial on stage 6 as well. your overall Giro Rosa winner for this year, Annemiek van Vleuten. Do you know what as well, Trevor, right? I want to put in women's cycling as much as I can in this show. If women's cycling needs a day dedicated to it, then I'm willing to do that. The issue I've got is being able to show that footage. Like GCN Racing obviously have exclusive rights to that footage. I can show small clips from it, but I can't ultimately put a highlights package together like they can. And trying to find out information, unless you go there, is very difficult on the Giro Rosa and all women's racing. There seems to be a disconnect between that women's racing, people wanting to know about it, but then people actually reporting it. Now, I'm just one man in his shed trying to get as much information as I can to produce some sort of news show. So I guess it's difficult for me to put out as much women's content as it is for the men's, because the men's is so accessible. If the women's was more accessible and I could get those news stories that I need, then they would definitely be making it into the show. All right, and we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you've not done already, and hit that notification bell so you know when we go live with our videos. 5 days to go now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 days to go now until I am in France. I cannot wait. I don't know why I'm telling you that, other than the news show is going to take a different dynamic from that moment onwards. As ever, thanks for watching. Until tomorrow,